and right in front of the shul.
Kadosh, Erev Tov, we are on Masechet Taanit, Daf Yod Amud Aleph. We're going to do a very quick chazara until the Mishnah, and then we're going to do a new Mishnah. Okay, where there's a Mishnah in the middle there. Okay, but we're going to do from the beginning, the top. That Yod Amud Aleph, we're going to go until the Mishnah very quickly. Okay, this is all chazara. This is like the fourth or fifth chazara, just in case you didn't pay attention. Okay, shh. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned to the Braita. Eretz Yisrael nivret chila. The first thing that was created was first Eretz Yisrael. And then afterwards, the rest of the world was created. Shneimar says in the pasuk, Ad lo asa eretz vechutzot. What does that mean? When we come and we say Ad lo asa eretz vechutzot, first was done Eretz, and then afterwards chutzot. So what's Eretz? Eretz Yisrael. What's chutzot? Outside the diaspora of Eretz Yisrael of Israel. Eretz Yisrael mashkeh ota HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'atzmo. Eretz Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvodo b'atzmo is going to come to give it to drink. V'chol ha'olam kulo al yedei shliach, and the rest of the world through a shaliach. Shneimar b'says ha'pasuk hanoten matar al penei haaretz v'sholech mayim penei chutzot. First, he himself is noten matar on the haaretz, he himself, and then sholeach al yedei shaliach. He's sending it through a shaliach, a messenger, al penei chutzot. Eretz Yisrael shochem v'neshamim. The Eretz Yisrael is going to come and going to drink from the rainwaters. And the rest of the world from the tamtzit, right? From the remaining of it. The Eretz Yisrael gets matar. But then it says, Maim is the rest of the world is going to get the maim on chutzot. Next, Eretz Yisrael shoteh techila. Eretz Yisrael first drinks. Right? And then after Israel gets everything, now the second grabs goes to the rest of the world. Shneimar says a pasuk, hanotem matar al penei haaretz v'sholech mayim al penei chutzot. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give the matar on the haaretz, and then he's going to send the water al penei chutzot. Right? Mashal, what's the parable compared to? The adam shemegabel et hagabina, that's somebody that's coming and he's making cheese. So what does he do? He takes the cheese out and he leaves the psolet behind. He leaves the mechalav, the whey and the milk, basically after making the cheese and it forms, he takes out the good stuff and he leaves the rest behind. So the same thing with Eretz Yisrael. Amar Mor says, if you remember, we said that the waters, the rain is going to be sweetened in the clouds. Menale, how do we know that the waters are going to be sweetened in the clouds? Because at the end of the day, right, seawater is salty. So if you're going to tell me that it's going to evaporate or it's going to come from there and it's going to come up and then it's going to give rain, it should be salty, not sweet. Why is it going to be sweet? So the Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yosef in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Ketiv it's written Cheshchat Mayim Aveshechakim. It's written that the waters in the clouds, it's going to make it choshech. Cheshchat Mayim, choshech Mayim al Aveshechakim. And it's written Chashrat. Chashrat is that when they connect together the clouds, they open up like a sieve. And then what happens is that you're just like pouring water in a sieve. Did you ever try pouring water in a sieve? It just comes down, but with holes, right? So it comes down separately. Okay? Shekol kaf, I wouldn't advise it. Yeah? Shekol kaf ushdi reish. Right? He comes and he says, you're going to take the kaf and you're going to put the resh. How do you have it now? One more time. What do you have? You had cheshchat, then you had chashrat. So you have a chaf and a reish, which are extra. So what's going on? So if you put them both together, you're going to have kasher, no? Chaf and the reish, and you already have chashrat, right? You already have the shin. So what do you have? So chachsherat. Why? Because you already had the chet, right? You put the chaf, right, of cheshchat, right? Then you already had the shin, and then you have also the resh of chashrat, the resh, and then you put them all together, it becomes chachshera, which means that the way that you read it is like it's going to become lachshir. Okay? Rabbi Yoshua, and according to Rabbi Yoshua, now if you remember, according to Rabbi Yoshua, he didn't learn the entire concept that it's coming from the waters of the Kianus. It's coming from the upper waters. So if it's coming from the upper waters, which are actually Mayim Elyonim, so therefore the question that we ask ourselves is that if we have the Mayim Elyonim, which are the upper waters, so why in the world then does it say Chashrat, Cheshchat? What's going on? So answers Rabbi Yoshua, Sabala Kiyade Echiyat Ravdimi, Amar, they said, Amri B'Ma'arav, they said in Etzel, Nahura Naneh, if the clouds are very, very light, Zirin Mohi, they have very little amount of rain. Zair is small. It's a small amount of rain. Chashuch Ananeh, if it's very, very dark, meaning the clouds are very dark, so then Sagyan Mohi. So it's got a lot, it's got too much, right? So Sagi is enough. Right, it's got enough rain, right? Enough. Already repeated.
Yeah, a lot or enough?
Right, enough, a lot. Right, which means that you have a lot of rain.
Exactly.
Okay, so Keman Azla Hadetanya. So says the Gemara. So who did it go like that? Which we learned in a Braita. We learned in a Braita. So we said that the way that we explain this is that the waters, which are the upper waters, it's like in a bathtub, but there's no tub. So it's just like hanging in the air. That's called, right? The Maim Elyonim b'ma'amar hem tluim. Hem tluim b'ma'amar. What is ma'amar? The words of Hashem, the utterances of Hashem. Why? Because remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whatever he says, he does.
No, that's he does. That's his word.
Yeah? That is the same.
Yeah.
Ki hu amar vayehi. Not vayehi. Right? Vayehi. What does that mean? The second that he went and he said something, that's the way that it was. And that's why it's written, Ba'asra ma'amarot nivra olam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with 10 utterances. Asra ma'amarot. Because with one utterance, he created things. All he has to do is it says it and it becomes created. That's all it has to do. So it says over here, uperotehen, what are the fruits of the Maim Ha'elyonim? What are the fruits? Megeshamim, rainwater. Shneimar b'says b'suk, mi perim ma'asecha tisba ha'aretz. What does that mean when we say mi perim ma'asecha tisba ha'aretz? It means to say mi perim ma'asecha, the fruits of your land, the land is going to be satiated. The fruits of your work, the land is going to be satiated. So here he wants to say, who's that? It's like Rabbi Yoshua. Because if you're going to tell me that the waters, the rainwater, is the perot of the Maim Elyonim, and therefore miperim ma'asecha, from the fruits of your work, tisbah, it's the land is going to be satiated. So then it's like Rabbi Yoshua. From the fruits of the water up above, the land is going to be satiated. That's like Rabbi Yoshua. That the water, the rain, comes from the Maim Elyonim. Says the Gemara, it's not true. Why? Because I can explain it differently. Rabbi Eliezer, according to Rabbi Eliezer, when it says that was in the creation of the world. Meaning when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, at the beginning of the world, what did he create? He created water. So when he created the water at the beginning of the world, it was the upper waters. But it doesn't mean that the entire time. So therefore, the waters, when he created the waters, that's what it means. Right? It's going to come and it's going to give to the land, to satiate. It's nothing to do with anything else. Okay, next. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, says Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Kol ha'olam kulo. Yeah. The entire world, mitamsit shel Gan Eden hu shoteh. The entire world is drinking from the tamsit of Gan Eden. From, you know what a tamsit is? From the leftovers, right? From the small amount, right? From like a concentrate, right? Of what? Of Gan Eden. Shneimar says the pasuk, v'nahar yotzeh me'Eden, that there's going to be a river coming out from Eden. Yeah, Shneimar says the pasuk, v'nahar yotzeh me'Eden shkol daganu misham yipareh vayal l'arba rashim. Then it's going to split to become 4 heads. Yeah. Very good. Okay, so says the Gemara. Yeah, hold up. Yeah, Tana. So we learned mitamsit betkur shotet tirkav. What does that mean? He comes and he says, from the tamsit of a bet kur, you're going to give to drink a tirkav. What does that mean? You remember we said 1 kav is 1/180th of a kur. Tirkav is 3 kabim. So therefore, if you divide 101 over 180 divided by 3,
60.
1/60th. So therefore, 1 tirkav is 1/60th of a bet kur. Bet kur is the size of a measurement, right? So therefore, what we're trying to say now is that when you have the tamtzit of the bet kur, that you're going to give a tirkav. So therefore, it's 1/60th. So therefore, just like Gan Eden is 60 times the world. So therefore, just like the bet kur is like Gan Eden, the tirkav is the world. So therefore, from the tamtzit of the Gan Eden, you're going to give to drink the world because it's 1/60th of the times. It makes sense. You understand? That means we're making a substitution of the bet kur and the tirkav as a proof to Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, the entire concept that a tamtzit of, right? A tamtzit of, the tamtzit is going to give to drink, right, the rest of the world. Okay?
Before we go into the 1/60th, can I call you a quick question?
We have we learned in the Braita. Eretz Mitzrayim is 400 parsaot and 400 parsaot. So we already explained last night through the help of Dr. John Paul Korshia and Dr. Nathaniel Perez. We came and Nathaniel Yitzhak. So we helped out that we were trying to understand what does this mean? How could you tell me that? Remember that if you're going to tell me right now that a parsa is between 2.3 miles and 2.9 miles, so we took like a meteor, the medium, which we said it was around 2.5 miles. So if you take it's around 2.5 miles, so it's 1,000. It's 1,000. So it's 100. It's 1,000 square miles by 1,000 square miles, which means 1 million square miles. Okay, so now we checked. And Egypt of today is only around 370, 370,000 square miles. But the ancient Egypt, which included whether it's going to be Libya, whether it's going to include Sudan, whether it's going to include Israel, whether it's going to include
Ethiopia, Syria, Lebanon,
certain places. So therefore, what happens is that it's going to become 1 million. It was all ancient Egypt. It was all one empire. Okay. So now that we just said that Eretz Mitzrayim is 400 parsaot by 400 parsaot, Vehu echad mishishim bekush, and it's going to be 1/60th of Kush. So Kush, we said, was Ethiopia. That we said that it was actually going to be from the entire south part, from Sudan all downwards, all the rest of Africa. So therefore, all the rest of Africa downwards is 60 times greater than what it was Egypt. Than what it is Egypt. So therefore, Mitzrayim is 1/60th of Kush. Kush, which is basically South Africa, is 1/60th of the world. And the world is 1/60th of the Gan. And the Gan is 1/60th of Eden. And Eden is 1/60th of Gehinnom. So Gehinnom is a big place. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. You're going to have, you have everything. 1 minute, we didn't get there yet. So says the Gemara, it comes out that the entire world is kikisui kederala Gehinnom. The entire world is the pot, the top of the pot for Gehinnom. Because Gehinnom is so big, right? So big. We didn't get there yet. Why? These two, they want to jump the Gemara. 1 minute.
Yes, circumference.
Exactly.
It's the same size.
No. This is the pot, and this is the kisui. The kisui is nothing. So therefore, this is all Gehinnom, and the pot is the top of the pot.
So far, we're talking about parsaot, so we're talking about surface.
100%. But here we're talking about the depth, obviously, right? It's like a kisui kedrash. The yesh omrim, and some people say, now this is what some people are over here saying, they prefer that there's no shiur in Gehinnom. You know what that means? There's no shiur. They don't give Kinyan Masechta in Gehinnom. Because if you don't come to Kinyan Masechta, they get Gehinnom. Gehinnom, you're not going to get Kinyan Masechta. Huh? Yeah, you don't get it. You don't get Kinyan Masechta there. Are you listening? There's no Kinyan Masechta in Gehinnom. If you learn Kinyan Masechta, you don't go to Gehinnom. Yeah? The yesh omrim, and some people say, Eden and la shiur. No, Eden has no shiur. Gehinnom does have a shiur, but Eden doesn't have a shiur. Remember, so what happens is that here we're seeing that it's Eden that doesn't have any shiur. Amar Ravoshi said, what does it mean? How do we know that? What does it mean when it's written? This is a very interesting sigula to do with Bavel, to do with rain. Listen to this. Okay, this is the name of Rav Oshaya.
I can tell you that if you want.
And he comes and he says this. What does it mean when it's written? Shochant al mayim rabim rabat otzarai. What does it mean that you're going to be dwelling on a lot of waters, right? On mayim rabim rabat otzarai, that you have a lot of otzarot. Mi garam leBavel shiu tzotei amalei opan. Who's the one that's giving Bavel that it's going to be filled with storage houses, full of grain? But it's going to be on mayim rabim. What does it mean? Since there's so much water underneath the land of Bavel, so you've got tons. That means it doesn't need to rain. Underneath, it's already so fertile. It already has so much rain. You don't need to do anything. Rav says, look how rich is Bavel, that really they're able to reap even without raining.
Yeah, we have a mine.
Rabbi says, Nikatina, we also have a Masechet, that it's actually a very fertile land, and it's not going to be, right? It's not going to be, Yushani, it's not going to be, let's go. The Mishnah says, Bishlosha b'mar cheshvan, shoalim et geshamim. This is the famous Mishnah. If you guys remember, I'll tell it to you outside first. If you guys remember, we had a machloket that we probably brought down 20 times. When do we start saying V'ten tal umatar livracha? So when do we start? When do we start? So we said
In Israel, in
Israel, it's either going to be the 3rd of Mar Cheshvan or the 7th of Mar Cheshvan. So we mentioned this many times, if you remember, because we mentioned this, whether it was that you remember the rains, when is the earliest to rain, the middle time to rain, the 3 different shitot there. We said 3, 7, 17. We said 7, 17, 23, 17, 23, Rosh Chodesh. You remember we kept on, we were learning this, we were digesting this. So this is the Mishnah, finally. Not only that, this Mishnah is a Mishnah that I quoted on Shabbat Seudat Shlishit. Shabbat? Shabbat. What's on Shabbat?
He wasn't here on Seudat Shlishit.
Why weren't you here on Seudat Shlishit?
He doesn't come to us
Why were you
anymore.
here on Seudat Shlishit? Shabbat Seudat Shlishit, we mentioned this.
Boom, Amaretz.
I don't remember.
We mentioned like this. Listen carefully and then you'll remember. Listen carefully. Jekut. Yeah. He comes and he says like this. He says, Bishlosha b'mar cheshvan, shoalin et geshamim. On the 3rd of Mar Cheshvan, we're going to come, we're going to ask for rain. Says the Rabban Gamliel, Omer Gamliel says, not on the 3rd, rather b'shiva bo, on the 7th. Chamisha asar yom. Why the 7th? It's 15 days. Can I please continue? Chamisha asar yom, 15 days after the Chag. 15 days after Shemini Atzeret. Which why? כדי שיגיע האחרון שבישראל. So the last one of Israel is able to get to Nehar Perat. What does that mean? Remember that the majority of people, they come to do Aliyah L'Regel. So when you do Aliyah L'Regel, you go up to Israel, so they have to go home. If it's going to start raining right after Sukkot, they're going to get retrenched in. They're not going to be able to go home. So therefore, everyone was already able to go to Nehar Perat, the Acharon Shel Yisrael, and therefore, that's why we said on the 7th of Mer Cheshvan, which is 15 days after Shemini Atzeret, that's when we start saying, V'ten tal umatal livracha. So why do we mention it on Shabbat? Because if you remember, we said that Rameir Shapiro, right, he went and he passed away on Zayin of Mar Cheshvan, which is the day that Acharon Shebe Israel. That's why the last one of Israel is able to come and to learn Torah. Obviously, we're not referring to the non-religious, right? Because if we're talking about the non-religious, right? Yes, Rameir Shapiro is a Daf Yomi, right? Why? Because if we're talking about a person who's not religious, he wouldn't be doing Aliyah L'Regel. But everyone that they want to be connected to the Bet HaMikdash, they were able to be drawn in. So Acharon Shebe Yisrael, Rameir Shapiro was always looking that when he created the Daf Yomi, he wanted that every single Jew in the world, no matter how far he is, he's able to come to connect to Daf Yomi. You heard? You could connect to Daf Yomi. Yeah? Not connect to this. Connect to Daf Yomi. That means you come and you make a connection, a bond with Daf Yomi. Okay? Why? So that's what the Rameir Shapiro, when he passed away on Zayin of Kislev, Zayin of Mar Cheshvan, sorry. I think I said Kislev. Zayin of Mar Cheshvan. Okay, that's when he passed away. So it says over here like this. So here we brought a machloke between Tanakama and Rabbi Elmaleh. How do we pass, Ken? Zagru, how do you know?
We just did it. The 7th Cheshvan in Israel. No Kutzlar.
Aywa. We learned it already. We went and we said, how do we know that we're paskening like Rabban Gamliel? Elmaleh Rabbi Zera Rabbi Asi, Umi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi. Does Rabbi Yochanan say that? Daled Amubet. V'atznam b'shusha b'mar cheshvan shoalin l'geshamim l'gamliel b'shiva bo. Ve'amar Rabbi Elazar halacha k'Rabban Gamliel. We learned it. Daf Daled Amubet.
It's almost here.
Rabbi, you're learning. You're very close. He was very close, actually. He said it was Daf Hey. It was very close. Daf Daled Amubet. Daf Daled Amubet. We already learned it. The Mishnah that we just read, we learned it. And Rabbi Gamliel that would write the Rabbi Elazar that we're going to learn right now. Says the Gemara, Daf Yud Amud Aleph. Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, Halacha k'Rabban Gamliel. That's what we basket. You want to know how do you know halacha? Say, not because we did it in Israel. That's cheating. No, but the Gemara already told you the halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel. Gemara Mefurashet says the Bielashar, the halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel. Capish? Chazak Guru. Next. Tanya, we learned in the Braita. Hananiah Omer. Says Hananiah, Uva Gola. What's a Gola? The diaspora. The outside. Chutzaretz. Right? In the Gola. At Shishim Batkufa. You do it 60 days from the beginning of the Tkufa of Tishri. What does that mean? Here in the footnote, it actually brings down that there are 4 Tkufot. You know what Tkufot are? Like seasons. Period. Like Onot. Yeah, like seasons. There's 4 Tkufot. We have the Tkufa of Tishri, which starts the Stav, autumn. Yeah? Right? Which basically it's going to be Laila and Yom Shavim. Tevet, right? Which is basically the winter time. You're going to have Nisan, which is the spring. And then Tammuz, the summer. 4 seasons, right? That's the 4 different seasons. So now he comes and he says, when is exactly Shishim Yom Acharei Tkufa? So he comes and he says, when you start Tishri, so 60 days is 2 months. So 2 months after Tishri, the Tkufa of Tishri, that's when you're going to have. So that's why it always comes out to the December 4th or December 5th. Obviously depends. 1 minute. So therefore, right, what are we talking about here? In the Gola, and this is why we just did this past Sunday night. The reason why we just started this past Sunday night is you live in the diaspora. And in the diaspora, Gemara Mefureshet says Hananiah that we do it 60 days, but kufa. Amar Rav Huna bar Chia Amar Shmuel, says Rav Huna bar Chia in the name of Shmuel, halakha like Hananiah. So therefore, we already paskin like what it is in Israel. In Israel, it's 7th of Mar Cheshvan, not the 3rd of Mar Cheshvan. We paskin. There's nothing what to talk. So we need to do it next. Now, what do we do? Days next month, Rabbi. No, see how after Tishri. This is a Spanish. Says the Gemara, any, are you going to come and you're going to tell me, right, that this is what he paskins? Right, Mishmuel, they asked Shmuel that he was in Babel, right, in Babel, yeah? I know. Me'emat matkerina v'tenu mata. When you mentioned v'tenu mata, Amar lehu, he told, are you guys listening? Amar lehu, he told them, Michi me'aylu tzive levet tavut rishba. You know what that is? Michi Ailu, when you're going to bring up Tzive is Etzim. Okay? Levei Tavut, to the Otzar, to the house of Tavut. Tavut is the name of a person. That he was a Dishbar. Dishbar is a Tzayad Ofot. Bird trapper, a bird hunter. Okay? That's what they are. Okay? So therefore, that's when you're going to do it. So therefore, it's not going to be 60 days after the Kufa. Answers the Gemara, it's the same shiur. It's the same thing. Meaning 60 days after the Tkufa, and when this guy comes and he starts bringing in the wood, right, for the winter season, because he doesn't want all the wood to get rained upon, right, in the winter season, so it's the same time. Okay, fine. Okay, and then the Gemara is going to ask, Ibai lehu, so we're going to ask the following question, Yom Shishim kilifnei Shishim, o kelachar Shishim, is the 60th day like the day before or the day afterwards? This is a famous question. Right, when you say 60 days after the Tkufa, is it the 60 days? Is it the 61st or the 60th? Right? So Tashema, we're going to come and we're going to try to bring a proof. Rav says Yom Shishim kelachar Shishim. Ushmuel Amar Yom Shishim kelachar Shishim. As always, it's machloket. Rav and Shmuel. Rav comes and he says that it's like afterwards, and therefore the same 60th day you're going to say V'ten Tomat Livrecha, and Shmuel says it's before. So therefore, you're not going to ask V'ten Tomat Livrecha until the next day. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. The simanach. How do you remember? What's a siman? Siman is to remember, right? To make a sign, and you remember it. How do you remember it? He comes and he says, yeah. He comes and he says, yeah. He comes and he says, what's a siman? Ilayu ba'u maya, right? When we are going to come and we're going to speak about the entire concept of that the waters are above. Right? So therefore, since we need them and they start coming down, but the ones which are beneath do not need water. What does that mean? How do you have from here the sign? So he comes and he says, the way that you have the sign over here is that it's only a zikaron, because Eli is somebody that lived the majority of this time in Eretz Israel. So therefore, he comes and he says that you need more water. But Shmuel was from the Tatai, because he was living in Babel. which is a valley, which you don't need that much water. Except for he says that what? That you don't ask for it right from the Shishim Yom of the Tkufa. Amar Papa says Rav Papa, Hilcheta Yom Shishim Kilachar Shishim. The 60th day of the Tkufa is like after the Tkufa, and therefore we're going to ask for rain also on the 60th day, and that's what we do. Right? Like Rav Papa just said it. What else?
Papa, I don't know if he cholek on now. So
Rav Papa, when he comes and he says Hilchata Kacha, that is